Samantha Reed didn't believe in blind dates. Not anymore. As the founder of a luxury fashion brand, she had spent her life surrounded by men who smiled for business deals and whispered love only when they saw her credit card. So when her best friend insisted she go on one last blind date with a perfect gentleman, Samantha sighed and gave in. Fine, but if he starts talking about crypto or yachts, I'm leaving, she had said while fastening her diamond earrings that night. The restaurant was 30 minutes away, a rooftop overlooking the city skyline, expensive, elegant, and exactly the kind of place she hated lately. Halfway there, her dashboard lit up like a Christmas tree. Beep. Low tire pressure. Then, boom. The car jerked violently to the side. Samantha swore under her breath, steering onto the shoulder of the empty country road. She climbed out, heels sinking into gravel, wind whipping her silk dress. The tire was completely flat. Perfect, she muttered. Just perfect. She tried calling roadside assistance, but her signal was weak. Her blind date, the mysterious gentleman she was supposed to meet, hadn't even texted to confirm. Samantha Reed, billionaire, fashion icon, and business powerhouse, was standing helplessly beside her luxury car, staring at a flat tire she had no idea how to fix. That's when she heard a truck slow to a stop behind her. A man stepped out, tall, broad-shouldered, with tousled brown hair and grease-stained hands. His t-shirt had a small patch that read Cole's Auto Repair. He wasn't the polished type she usually dealt with. No designer watch, no cologne, just a simple, rugged man who looked like he worked hard for everything he had. He gave her a polite nod. Need a hand, ma'am? Samantha's instinct screamed to be cautious, but there was something calm in his voice, steady, grounded. I think I have it under control, she lied, kneeling awkwardly beside the tire. Her dress snagged on the rim, and she winced. He crouched next to her, watching her fumble with the tire iron. Yeah, looks like you're doing great, he said with a small grin. Samantha glared, but there was humor behind it. You think you can do better? Pretty sure. Before she could argue, he rolled up his sleeves and got to work. Within minutes, he had the car lifted, the spare out, and the tire changed with practiced ease. She watched quietly, struck by how efficient and calm he was. When he stood, wiping his hands on a rag, she noticed the faint smudge of oil on his cheek, and the dimple that appeared when he smiled. There you go. Good as new. Wow, she said softly. You make it look easy. Been doing it since I was 16, he said. Then, glancing at her car, he added, bet this one costs more than my whole house. Samantha chuckled awkwardly. Probably. Before she could offer him money, a small voice called from his truck. Daddy, are we still getting ice cream? Samantha turned to see a little girl, maybe 6 or 7, sitting in the passenger seat with her hands pressed to the window. She had curly brown hair, bright eyes, and a smile so full of innocence it made Samantha's chest tighten. Yeah, kiddo, he called back, just helping the lady first. That's your daughter? Samantha asked, surprised. He nodded, smiling proudly. Lily, my little boss. Samantha smiled despite herself. She's adorable. Yeah, she's my whole world. He shrugged modestly, then looked back at her. Anyway, you're all set. Take it slow on your way out. She reached into her bag, pulling out a crisp $100. At least let me pay you for your time. He shook his head immediately. No need. It was just a tire. But, he lifted his hand slightly. Really? Keep it. Just promise me you won't drive on bald tires again. She blinked, taken aback. People didn't refuse her money. Not ever. You don't want anything. He shrugged. Maybe a smile. That's free, right? Her lips parted in surprise, then curved into one despite herself. As he walked back to his truck, she called out, wait. What's your name? Ethan, he said, glancing back with a half smile. Ethan Cole. Ethan Cole, she repeated softly. Thank you. He gave her a little salute and climbed into the truck. Samantha watched as he drove off with his daughter waving at her through the window. For a long moment, she just stood there under the setting sun, the sound of the engine fading. Her phone buzzed, a text from her blind date saying he couldn't make it. Samantha laughed under her breath. Figures. A week had passed since the night her tire went flat. Samantha Reed should have forgotten about it by now. She had meetings lined up, a new product launch, and a dozen deadlines, but her mind kept drifting back to that small-town mechanic with the kind eyes and his little girl waving from the truck window. Ethan Cole. Every time she drove past a repair shop or saw a father and daughter together, his image came to mind. The way he smiled without expectation, how he spoke with quiet confidence instead of charm. It was refreshing. One afternoon, after an especially stressful morning at work, Samantha made a decision that surprised even herself. Instead of heading back to her high-rise apartment, she found herself turning down the familiar road leading to Cole's auto repair. Her luxury car looked painfully out of place among the pickup trucks and dusty sedans lined up outside. She hesitated for a moment before stepping out, dressed in tailored slacks and heels that didn't belong anywhere near oil stains. Inside, she found Ethan beneath the hood of an old Chevy, humming to himself. His daughter, Lily, sat at a small table in the corner, coloring a picture of a dog with missing patches of fur. When she noticed Samantha, her face lit up. "Miss Tire Lady," Lily shouted. Samantha blinked, then laughed. "Miss Tire Lady, I guess that's me." Ethan straightened, bumping his head on the hood. "Ow, Lily, don't call her that," he said, rubbing the spot. But when he turned and saw Samantha, his irritation melted into surprise. "You again. I thought I'd bring my car in for a checkup," she said, feigning innocence. Ethan crossed his arms. "A checkup? Pretty sure I fixed the problem last time." She shrugged, smiling. "Maybe I just wanted to make sure you didn't miss a spot." He chuckled, shaking his head. "All right, Ms. Reed, hand me the keys." For the next hour, Samantha watched him work, his movements steady, his focus absolute. He wasn't performing or trying to impress her. He was simply himself, and that was what made her stay. Lily offered Samantha a crayon and pointed at her drawing. "You can color too." Samantha hesitated, then crouched beside her. "Okay, but fair warning, I'm terrible at staying inside the lines." Lily giggled. "It's okay. Daddy says the best things happen outside the lines." Something in Samantha's chest softened. That small, simple truth hit her harder than any motivational quote she'd ever read. When Ethan finished, they locked up the shop together. Lily had fallen asleep in the back of his truck, her tiny head resting on a stuffed bunny. Samantha lingered beside him, unsure why she didn't want to leave yet. "Burgers?" he asked suddenly. "There's a diner down the road. Best milkshakes in town." She looked down at her white silk blouse and heels, then at his grease-stained shirt. "You realize this is probably the most uneven dinner date ever, right?" He smirked. "I've been called worse. The diner was small, the kind of place with checkered floors and neon signs buzzing faintly. Samantha sat across from Ethan in a booth that smelled faintly of fries and nostalgia. To her surprise, she felt more comfortable here than she ever had in any five-star restaurant. "So, you own a repair shop," she said, sipping her shake. "How long have you been doing this?" "Since I was 16, he replied. "My dad taught me everything. When he passed, I took over. Been me and Lily ever since." There was quiet pride in his voice, but also exhaustion. Samantha could hear it between the lines. "And her mother?" she asked gently. He paused, eyes flicking down to his hands. "She left when Lily was 2. Said she wasn't ready to be a mom." Samantha's throat tightened. "I'm sorry." He shrugged. "Don't be. Lily's the best thing that ever happened to me." As the night wore on, they talked about everything and nothing. Childhood dreams, worst mistakes, favorite songs. Samantha laughed until her cheeks hurt, and Ethan looked at her like she was more than just the perfect image the world saw. When he dropped her off at her car later, she lingered beside the door. "This was nice," she said softly. "Yeah," he replied. "Didn't think I'd ever see you in a place like Rosie's Diner." "Me neither," she admitted, smiling. "Maybe I've been in the wrong places all along." Over the next few weeks, Samantha found more excuses to visit the shop. Sometimes it was a rattle in the engine, sometimes just checking the air pressure. But everyone knew it wasn't about the car anymore. She brought Lily storybooks and sketchpads, and soon the little girl started calling her Miss Sam. Samantha found herself helping with homework, reading bedtime stories while Ethan finished late repairs. It felt real, warm, home. Until one night, her world and his collided. At a charity gala downtown, one of her socialite friends spotted Samantha arriving in Ethan's old truck. "Sam, darling," the woman said, her tone dripping with disbelief, "please tell me this grease monkey isn't your date." Ethan's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Samantha felt the sting of judgment in every stare around them. For a long second, she hesitated, old habits whispering in her ear. But then she reached for Ethan's hand and smiled. "Yes," she said clearly. "He is." Later that night, outside beneath the city lights, Ethan turned to her. "You don't belong in my world, Samantha. But you make it feel like home." She looked up at him, tears glimmering. "Maybe I've spent too long in the wrong world." He smiled softly. "So, blind date disaster, huh?" She laughed, leaning up to kiss him. "The best disaster of my life." And when little Lily ran out from the truck to wrap her arms around them both, Samantha knew she hadn't just found love. She'd found a family. She got back into her car, staring at the road ahead. Maybe it was a disaster of a night. Or maybe it was the start of something different.